We're restructuring, Ray. Effective today, you're out. My watch reads 8:47 a.m., but the clock on the CEO's wall seems frozen at 6, as if the office itself refuses to witness this. The glass table between us feels colder than the February rain streaking down the window. For a heartbeat, I'm not Chief Revenue Officer. I'm just a man who's suddenly misplaced his future. My name is Raymond Lee. I'm 50 years old. 9 years at Transvero. 3 as CRO. Tripled the company's revenue, brought in the largest contract in our history, built the national sales backbone out of nothing but spreadsheets and second chances. I never missed a target. I never thought I'd be obsolete. The HR director sits in the corner pretending to take notes. I can see the outline of the exit packet in her lap. A thick manila envelope, the sort they only hand out once. She doesn't meet my eyes. I almost want to laugh. After nearly a decade of boardrooms, this is how it ends? I nod, slow and deliberate. I ask the only question that matters. On what grounds? The CEO leans back, folding his hands as if he's studied for this moment. Restructuring. Strategic brand evolution. The board wants fresh perspectives. It's nothing personal, Ray. Of course it's personal. It always is. But I just breathe in and out, steady as I can. I don't argue. I don't plead. I refuse to give him the satisfaction. The walk back to my office is a gauntlet. People look up, then look away. Some know, some guess, all pretend. My desk still smells like the cheap coffee I made at 6 a.m. My daughter's graduation photo stares up from under a stack of quarterly forecasts. 9 years. First in, last out. I built this place one process, one broken region, one burned-out sales manager at a time. The first dashboard I ever coded is still pinned to my wall. Cell B19 turned red if a rep missed quota. That dashboard saved the Michigan branch in 2016. The marker stains from all-nighters never washed out. I remember our first major automation, after hours, on my own dime, just to prove to the CTO we could do it without external consultants. Back then, the CEO used to call me the quiet fix. Said I was too stubborn to let things break. Guess I should have been more stubborn about myself. Now I'm just a file in HR's outbox. I don't say goodbye. Not yet. Instead, I ask for all official documentation, minutes from the meeting, copies of board notes, every formal rationale for my termination. The HR director's hand shakes a little. Of course, Raymond. We'll send them by end of day. I don't believe her, but I nod anyway. On my way out, I catch a few whispers. Old hands who remember the rough years, when sales missed targets and layoffs came every Christmas. They give me a look. Respect, regret, and relief that it isn't them. It's never just business. In the parking lot, my phone buzzes. A text from my oldest sales manager. 2 words. You okay? I don't reply. Not yet. That evening, after cleaning out my laptop and boxing up 2 decades of notebooks, I sit in the quiet of my kitchen, replaying every quarter, every hard-won win. My wife pours me a drink. She asks what happened, and I tell her the truth. They said I was too old for the brand. She laughs, but there's no humor in it. Sleep comes slow. Around midnight, a memory surfaces. 6 months ago, the CEO had called me into his office, friendly as ever, asked if I'd help tidy up documentation for a batch of new overseas vendors. Just a formality for the auditors, Ray. You're the only one I trust to keep it clean. I'd spent that weekend combing through contracts, redlining payment schedules, making sure everything matched. The files went straight to his personal email, not legal's. I never thought about it again. Until now. The next morning, the first thing I do is call my lawyer. He's been with me since the startup days, seen every offer letter, every stock grant, every 4 a.m. panic about employment clauses. I lay it all out. The sudden firing, the brand rationale, the lack of performance warnings. He listens in silence, then asks, Ray, do you have copies of everything? Contracts, any changes, performance reviews? I do. Years of paranoid backups. We arrange to meet. I spend the day assembling every digital scrap, every HR email, every bonus memo that slipped through the cracks. As I search my archive, I stumble on a forgotten Excel export from the vendor purge. I almost delete it, then stop. One tab stands out. Payments. External. In the list, I spot 3 payments to a British Virgin Islands entity, flagged as consulting fees, signed off by the CEO himself. The numbers don't add up. Neither do the dates. My lawyer and I review everything. We note inconsistencies, contract amendments unsigned, bonuses omitted from separation papers, and no trace at all of the so-called loss of trust. In performance reviews, I'm indispensable. In board minutes, my name barely appears. He advises caution. We need to be clinical, Ray. Document everything. Don't make threats. I follow orders. We assemble a folder with every anomaly, screenshots, original files, email chains, the vendor spreadsheet. My lawyer suggests one more step: share the summary, quietly, with a trusted board member who owes me a favor. I think about it all night. I don't want to fight. I want the record set straight, the scales balanced. Next morning, I send the package. No cover letter, just a link to a cloud folder. By noon, my phone rings. We got your message. Leave the rest to us. A week later, the company hums with rumors. The CEO cancels his keynote at the annual conference, avoids all hands calls, vanishes from Slack. HR goes silent. One afternoon, a convoy of black sedans shows up, external auditors from a Big Four firm. Staff meetings are frozen. Colleagues text me updates. They're digging deep. No one knows what's going on. I keep my head down. I start taking meetings with recruiters, private equity, family offices, even a few old rivals. I don't broadcast my story, but word travels. My reputation stands on its own. Someone always needs a steady hand when the water gets rough. 3 weeks later, the news breaks. Transvero CEO steps down amid internal audit. The press release says personal reasons, but the board chair's statement is curt, almost icy. SEC announces a preliminary inquiry into vendor payments. I watch it unfold from a distance. No joy, no revenge, just a strange relief that I did what had to be done. The board calls. They offer me a consulting role to steady the transition. I decline. My time with Transvero is over. I accept a partner role at a small investment firm focusing on operational strategy. Better hours, fewer surprises, no illusions about being family. Some evenings, I walk by the old office, just to remind myself how fast things can change. I don't regret the years I gave, but I don't cling to them either. I did my job. I left it cleaner than I found it. It was never about revenge, just a question of balance. That's how I choose to end it. Not with noise, not with threats, just the quiet certainty that the only real legacy is the standard you set and the line you refuse to cross. After the dust settles, my inbox fills with messages. Former colleagues, old clients, even a few board members. Some offer sympathy, others fish for details. A handful just want to know what really happened. I answer only the ones who matter, careful to keep my tone steady. No bitterness, no gloating. Just facts and a quiet thank you. The industry buzzes. The logistics press runs 3 versions of the same headline. Transvero faces turbulence. Friends forward me articles with subject lines like, "You okay?" I don't reply to most. There's nothing left to say. At home, my wife asks how I feel. I shrug. She's known me too long to expect outrage. I tell her the truth. I'm relieved. I did what was right. Now we move on. In my first weeks out, I learn a strange kind of freedom. No more late-night Slack pings. No more crisis calls from panicked branch managers. I sleep through the night for the first time in years. I start running again, not for stress relief, but because I finally have the time. Recruiters call. Some want a war story, others want a savior. I sift through the noise and focus on one firm, private, lean, interested in building rather than fixing. At our first meeting, they ask what I want most. My answer surprises even me. A team I can trust and a job that doesn't require cleaning up someone else's mess. They make an offer. Partner, operational strategy, decent equity, clear expectations, no pretense of family. I accept. It feels almost too easy. A few months pass. The SEC probe makes headlines. Transvero's stock wobbles, then stabilizes under new leadership. The ex-CEO vanishes from LinkedIn. Internally, friends tell me the culture changes. Less bravado, more accountability. I don't feel vindicated, but I do feel at peace. One day, I get a handwritten note from a junior analyst I mentored years ago. It says simply, "Thank you for showing me what right looks like. I stayed because of you." I tape it above my new desk, a reminder that real influence isn't in titles or press releases, but in the standards you set for others. I don't go back to Transvero even when they invite me for the holiday reunion. I send a short reply. Wishing you well. Keep it steady. My new life is quieter, less dramatic, and exactly what I need. I spend weekends hiking, trying new recipes, calling my daughter at college just to hear about her day. No one cares about quarterly targets here. I find that I don't miss them. Sometimes, over morning coffee, I reflect on all those years at Transvero. The deals closed, the crises averted, the quiet nights alone in the office. I'm proud of what I built. I'm proud, too, that I walked away without losing myself to the machinery. In the end, I didn't get revenge. I got something better, clarity, a clean slate. The satisfaction of knowing that, when the line came, I chose to do the right thing. And that, I realize, is all the closure I'll ever need. Word travels fast in our business. By late spring, Transvero's competitors start poaching some of our best branch managers. Friends send me LinkedIn posts about exciting new beginnings at rival firms. I feel a flicker of pride. Loyalty shouldn't mean standing still, and good people deserve more than a sinking ship. I meet a few of them for coffee. They want my read on the new board, the rumors about the next CEO. I share what I know, but mostly I just listen. I see in their faces the same exhaustion that drove me to finally step back. Too many years holding up a company that didn't hold them back. In my new firm, the work is different. Less firefighting, more planning. I mentor a team half my age, teach them how to spot the warning signs in a balance sheet, how to keep their integrity when the numbers start to blur. Some nights I wonder if I'm being too cautious, if I've become the old guard I used to resent. But then I remember the fallout at Transvero, and I know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. The SEC probe drags on. A friend inside tells me they've frozen 2 accounts, called in auditors from 3 different states. The old CEO tries to spin the narrative, claiming he was sabotaged by a rogue finance team. No one believes it. The industry learns, slowly, stubbornly, that accountability always lands somewhere, even if it takes a year or 2. One Saturday, I get a call from a board member who quietly helped pass along my dossier months before. She thanks me, asks if I'd ever consider consulting for Transvero during the transition. I politely decline. I built my legacy there, I say, but I don't need to guard its ruins. She laughs, tells me she understands, and we hang up as colleagues, not rivals. My family life is better than it's been in years. My wife and I travel, Oregon coast, Napa, Montreal. I teach my daughter how to drive a stick shift in a borrowed Jeep, both of us laughing until we're in tears. At night, I check my email, find nothing urgent, and close the laptop without guilt. I'm not a hero. I didn't save Transvero, but I did what was needed when it counted. I set a line that someone else will one day set for me. And for the first time since I started in logistics, I know what it's like to win by walking away, not out of spite, but out of principle. Sometimes, late at night, I write a few notes for the book I'll never publish. Lessons learned, mistakes made, rules worth keeping. Rule number 1, always. When the system breaks, be the one who leaves it cleaner than you found it. And if there's any legacy worth leaving, it's that. Summer in New Jersey hums with a kind of promise I haven't felt in years. My old colleagues check in every so often. A quick email, a LinkedIn message, a phone call after dinner. Some landed softly, others are still finding their feet, but nearly all of them thank me, quietly, for what I did. I tell them the truth. It wasn't courage, just clarity. You can only carry someone else's secrets for so long before they burn a hole in your pocket. Transvero's brand lingers in industry news feeds, mostly in the context of corporate governance reforms and leadership transition. I skim the articles, note the change in tone. What was once glossy PR now reads as wary accountability. I never see my name mentioned, and that suits me fine. The people who matter know the truth, and the rest can keep guessing. In my new office, I keep a folder labeled "What Not to Ignore." Inside are copies of old contracts, anonymized audit notes, a post-it with the words, "Paper trails never die." My team jokes about my paranoia, but they also ask for my advice before every major deal. I tell them to trust their instincts, but back it up with proof. No more blind faith in family. My daughter gets accepted into a summer engineering camp. When she asks about office politics, I tell her, do your work, know your worth, and never let anyone trade your ethics for a promotion. She nods. Maybe she understands, maybe not yet. But I see in her the same determination that kept me going all those years. Sometimes I catch myself looking back, measuring my old life by the deals closed, the quarters won. But now, the real victory feels smaller, quieter, a reputation intact, a handful of friendships that survived the storm, a family that saw me at my lowest and didn't turn away. Fall comes, the SEC probe still unresolved, but I sleep better than I have in a decade. My days are full but manageable, my nights empty of dread. I don't miss the old office, or the urgent texts from C-suites at midnight. I miss some people, sure, but not the person I had to become to survive in that place. If I ever step into another boardroom with a whistleblower's folder under my arm, I'll remember this. You don't owe a company your silence, only your best work. And when the time comes to choose, legacy or loyalty, pick the one that lets you look yourself in the mirror. Transvero will rebuild, or maybe it won't. But I did my part. I left the truth where it needed to be found, and I walked away with my integrity. Scarred maybe, but still mine. 3 months after I left Transvero, the industry press was still dissecting the fallout. The company's stock price stumbled, a handful of key contracts were quietly renegotiated, and every senior manager was called in for compliance reviews. For a while, my name floated around as the potential savior, the guy who'd stood up to a toxic CEO and forced a long overdue reckoning. I let the rumors swirl, stayed silent, and kept my focus on the next move. My days took on a new rhythm. Early mornings, late nights, spreadsheets and strategy decks. But this time, it was for myself. I joined a private investment partnership run by a handful of ex-operators, people who valued methodical execution over PR stunts. No more boardroom egos, no more corporate branding exercises, just the honest grind of building things that lasted. I kept tabs on old colleagues, answered questions for junior managers looking for advice, but I never once thought about going back. The old loyalty was gone, burned out not by betrayal, but by the cold clarity of seeing the system for what it was. I had done my job, protected what mattered, and refused to let someone else write the final chapter of my story. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I'd remember the earliest days at Transvero, the late-night calls from regional offices, the spreadsheets that never quite balanced, the thrill of a sales win that made the difference between layoffs and payroll. I'd remember the pride of building something real, the satisfaction of making order out of chaos. And I'd remind myself, those victories were mine. Nobody could take them away, no matter how loudly they rewrote the past. One evening, after a long day at the new office, I locked up my desk, turned off the lights, and walked out onto the city street. The air was cool, fresh with the hint of rain. I stood for a moment, listening to the distant hum of traffic, feeling the weight of the past few years settle in my bones. I didn't regret how it ended. I didn't wish for revenge or a different outcome. I was free, and I'd earned that freedom, not by fighting fire with fire, but by keeping my head, holding my ground, and letting the truth do the rest. Work isn't family. Loyalty has to be mutual. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is quietly, methodically, tip the scales back to even, and then move on.